Alright, so it's been a little bit since I made a video, and I figure I'll try something a little bit different today. Rather than picking and gutting, what we'll do is we'll reassemble then gut. And I figured when you get a new lock and you pick it for a while and you can't figure out what's going on, and this might be a good example of one where you might have a hard time, which we'll get into when we get to the picking segment. You can you can gut the lock and you can take a look at the internals. And maybe learn a little bit about why you got stuck on a particular lock, and and then you can learn it and pick it, and then try a couple others of the same or whatever, just to get your feel better. It also, you could progressive pin as well, which is if you're having trouble with all 5 pins, you could just go with starting with just a few pins. Now in this case, this particular lock, we have 2 standard pins on 5 and 4. We have 2 spools on 3 and 2, and then we have this, I think it's called an RBC pin on number 1, and this is what could be tricky if you've never encountered this lock before, or if you didn't know this was in here. And what's weird about this is that usually when you have a driver pin, right, it'll drop in there, and it'll drop all the way down, right? You would have a key pin in there, and you'd have a driver pin, right? And the driver pin is what's going to stop the plug from turning. But as you saw, if I don't have a key pin, this, the diameter of this will allow it to drop all the way down, right? That RBC pin is a bit different in that it is got this kind of drop down on it. You see, like a T pin kind of thing. But the thing that's different about this is it doesn't go down, right? It only goes down a little bit, and then it stops. So it's like a really fat pin. So if you compare it to a standard pin, see if we can do this or not, it is fatter than a standard pin. Probably hard to see, it's just a little bit fatter than the standard pin, and that doesn't allow it to drop down into the chamber. And what that does is that when you have your key pin in there, this pin doesn't necessarily even touch the key pin. And when you go to lift on it, you're just feeling like you're lifting against the air, right? So you have your pin, and there's like nothing there. So oftentimes if you pull out, you might not even notice that pin's there because you don't feel any springiness or anything like that. So that could trip you up for quite a while if you don't know anything about that. So I figure I'll go ahead and reassemble. So we know 2 and 3 are spools. So we know that with the knowledge, you don't have to go map it out or anything like this. This will help you if you get stuck on a lock for a while, right? You gut and take a look inside. This piece fell out. This is kind of weird. It's a tip for the key there, so that's as far as the key will go in because it doesn't have any sort of stop on the shoulder there. And then this has to go down here to stop everything, like that. And then we can go ahead and reassemble. So we'll start with the Bible. And if you haven't reassembled before, you want a follower. You could use the plug as follower, but that's a little bit more tricky, maybe a bit more advanced. And what I do is I'm going to start at the back because they're easy to reach. I'm going to start with chambers 4 and 5. You could do it all the way just 5 down to 1, but I find this a little bit easier. Especially these springs are really, really long, so they're really pretty strong. Not strong springs, but strong in the sense that they're very long, so they push really far. So now that I have that in there, I'm going to take this standard pin and I'll push down into the chamber, and then I'll push with the follower, and I'll hold that down, and I can push down onto that, and then the follower will come forward. So drop this in, take this key pin, this driver pin, and you see it's like that. It's springy, but if I push on it with the driver, it'll get snagged, and I can push down and advance the follower. So now we'll just do the front 3. So that's the back 2. So now the front 3. Make sure you get them in order, right? So I did 4, 5, and now I'm doing 3, 2, 1. So these springs are a little tricky. Spool, same thing. Drop it in. You might not be able to see this right now, or a little hard to hold. Drop that in. Come on. Can be tricky. All right. And then that's held, and it's slanted, so when I push down on this, I actually have to let the follower go back a bit to let it in, just like picking a spool pin. If you haven't picked a spool pin before, you'll see when we get to picking what that entails, what to expect, and how you know it's a spool. So we'll drop that in there, push that down, and then one more. Front pin, this RBC, gotta make sure you put it in the right way with the thinner side facing the plug, like that. All right, so now that that's fully populated, we can go ahead and populate our plug. Easy enough, just grab your pins, make sure the pointy side's down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before you go sticking everything together, always good to verify with your key that you got this right. So you put that in. If you do it really fast, these might shoot out, so you want to be careful. And you can see they're all flush with the top, right? And when you're assembling, it's good to have the key as well, so that if you don't have the key, then these are going to be lower and allow driver pins to drop down into them. But at least this way, if you happen to, put it upward and lock it up, the driver pins can't drop anywhere. So you want to have this at an angle in any case, so you don't go into this gap at the back. You don't drop into any of these hole, chambers. And just as you're pushing the plug in, and you see I screwed up, I rotated up and down. Now, if this key hadn't been in there, those driver pins could have dropped in. Now, why isn't this going all the way in? Well, it's probably because here you can see the last driver pin has dropped down. So we'll go ahead and lift that up and continue advancing our plug. And there we go. Now we have this in. Now, don't pull this out because you'll drop everything like crazy. What you want to do is either put your clip on the back first, or while holding the front of the plug, now you can pull your key out while holding that front of the plug, right? So I'm holding it with my index finger here. And now it's locked in there. You can go ahead and put your clip on. You could have done this before as well. And that's a really hard clip to put on. There we go. There we go. All right, so that clips on. And test your key. That's all working nice. Okay, so let's get this stuff out the way. And we'll bring this one over here into the picture. Move this. All right, we'll take the key out because we don't need that. All right, put that up here. I pick American style, right, which is with the key pins with the Bible on top. Europeans, right, they're gonna pick it this way around. Whatever, I've picked it both ways around. I just prefer this way. Obviously, if it was installed in a door, it'd probably be the other way around, but I'm doing this for fun as a little puzzle. All right, so here's a tensioner. We'll go ahead and put that in there. And this pick's a little bit tall, but it'll be fine. All right, so what are we doing here? Let me see, I'm gonna rotate this a bit. Hopefully we're still in focus. All right, and when I usually like to start at the back of a lock, but let's say we start at the front. So I don't feel anything until here. Okay, I feel a spring. That's actually the second pin, because the first pin is just this floaty nonsense. Actually, if I pushed up higher on it, I might feel a spring at some point. But the second one is springy, third one springy, springy, and the last one is binding. So what we'll do is we'll tension, and I like to start at the back, like I said. I have to lift up on this pick because it's really tall, so I have to lift up to get under the pins. So it might not be an ideal pick for this, but it'll work. All right, so the fifth one is actually the springy one. Fourth one's springy. Third springy. Second springy, and then I don't feel anything else. So I'm like, what's going on here? Well, that first pin is actually the binder. And there we got click, got a little bit of plug rotation. And now if I go through, I actually can't get underneath this pin. All right, so 5 springy, 4 is binding, it seems. Click. Let's go back. 5 is now binding. And I'm doing this really slow so you can see what's going on. Except I lost track of my number 5 there. Oh, and I think I overset them. So all kinds of fun stuff now. Dropped it back down. All right, we dropped into a false set. So you can see it's quite a bit off center. Like normally this tensioner would be up and down, right? So what's going on here is that we are in the spools. If we go and we feel, we can see pin 5, slightly springy, 4 slightly springy. Come back and 1 is floating all the way up there. So let's see, 3. This one here, I think this is 2. You can see as I push on it that if I push down, we get counter rotation out of the plug. The plug's trying to straighten itself out because that spool is pushing along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push and I'm going to let go of tension slightly. I mean, I'm holding tension, but I'm letting it counter rotate ever so slowly until it can get over the thick part of the spool, like that, boom. All right? But now we're not in that deep false set still. We lost the deep false set. So some standard pin has dropped back down. We've set that one spool and some other standard pin has dropped down. So I feel a binder here like at 4 or something like that. I'll push up on that. And we're open. So I didn't set number 3, I think, of the spools. So what we'll do is we'll go the other way just to show something else. So we're going to clockwise this time on tension. And we'll go I like to start at the back, like I said. And now 5 is binding. No springiness. Push up on 5. Until we get a little click. And now it's springy, right? So it's springy, so that means that we're set or not binding. In any case, not binding, right? 4. Springy, not binding. 3, not binding. 2, not binding. And 1 isn't even there. So this is like, what's going on? So if you hadn't taken apart, you might not know that 1 is that weird RBC pin. But we know it, and we can also feel for it as we go up high. We can see, oh, this one's binding. It's not springy at all. So we'll go ahead and set that one. All right. And now if we go back to the back again, I get stuck on pin 4 trying to get back. So 5 is still springy. 4 is actually binding, so we'll lift it up. And boom, we've dropped into a false set. We'll go ahead and feel for 3. I mean, you can go feel 5 again and 4 again, but there'll be a little bit springy. And we can see 3 is giving me that counter rotation. So I'll go ahead and lift it and drop back down into our false set. Come back. Okay, number 2 is now doing what number 3 did. So when we did it counterclockwise, we didn't encounter both spools. One of them had got somehow set to the shear line, and we didn't have to pick our way through both of them. Well, clockwise, we can see we have to pick both of them. So I can see that. What I'll do is I'll slowly counter rotate until we get an open. And that is, and I didn't even say what lock this is. This is the Fab 100. Okay, it's I think, I don't know where it's from. I got it from a guy in Czechoslovakia. So, or no, is that right? The Czech Republic? Oh, sorry, I haven't been there since it was Czechoslovakia. So, in any case, that is the Fab 100, and a little bit of analysis on how to attack it. Thanks everyone. Bye.